In this video, we are going to learn about the different sections of an empirical paper. So this is going to include everything from abstract all the way down to a discussion. So what is an abstract and what its purpose? The abstract is essentially a very brief version of the paper that comes at the very beginning. And if you're searching for articles online, you'll often be able to read the abstract without downloading the article. And if the article is behind a paywall, the abstract is usually something that you can read for free. So an important thing in regards to this class, an abstract is going to include some bit of the method and the results. So you're typically going to have the average sample or the sample size, you're going to have the average age, maybe the gender breakdown, and a little bit about what you found in the paper. The key thing here is that abstracts are really short. You're talking 120 to 250 words, whereas a full empirical article is often like 8 to 12,000 words. So very, very, very short. After the abstract, you have the introduction. Now, we often call these literature reviews, and I'll be honest, that's actually one of my big pet peeves is calling these literature reviews. Because yes, while we do review literature in them, the real purpose of an introduction is to justify or help explain your alternative hypotheses and why they make sense. So you're bringing in past theory, you're bringing in, yes, you're citing past literature and research, but it's really about justifying those hypotheses. After the introduction, you're going to have the current study or present study section. I'm trying to think. Occasionally, you'll see different names in those, but those are the vast majority of time. Those are what are used, are those titles. The purpose of this section is almost like a summary of your introduction. It's, hey, right, here's the big overall question that I'm trying to ask, and let me give you then a breakdown of my hypotheses. And sometimes you're going to see those in bullet points in the current study section. We had 5 hypotheses. Here's number 1, here's number 2, and all the way down to number 5. Very important sections. I need to highlight something here. You're going to see between especially the intro, the current study section, and the discussion, a little bit of repetitiveness because like here in the current study section, you're sometimes going to have just a little bit of the ideas of justifying those hypotheses. And you probably have your hypotheses stated in your introduction section too. But we have that repetitiveness because it's pretty rare that we sit down and read an entire article. Instead, sometimes I'm like, I need to know what their hypotheses were, so I open up that article and I jump to the current study section. Or I really want to understand the justification of their hypotheses, so I'm going to read the whole introduction. So a little bit of that repetition is because of the purposes of those sections. After the current study section comes the method. Now, there are typically going to be 3 sections here to the method. The first is you're going to describe the participants. So this is the who, right? Who do we have in this sample? You're going to include descriptive stats that we've learned how to run here. Things about their age and ethnicities and maybe their incomes and education levels and gender, where they come from, those types of things. The procedure section, which typically comes after participants, is the how. So how did we actually collect these data? How did we recruit these people? We're not the questions yet that we asked them, but how did we ask them those questions? Did we do this in person? Did we do an internet survey? Did we call them on the telephone? Those types of things. And then you're going to end with your measures sections. Sometimes this is called Sorry, my microphone cut out further for a second. So the measures section sometimes is called instruments. This is the detail about what you actually asked them. If this is going to be an observational study, it's what things you were looking for in the observations. If it's qualitative, it's what open-ended questions did you ask. If it's a survey, it's about the measures that you used to assess the different things that you assessed. All right, so after the method section comes the first section that's particularly relevant for us. And I'm going to call this the analytic strategy. Oh man, I'm all of a sudden drawing a blank on other names that we see for this. Analysis plan is probably the second most common. The idea here is that you are describing in detail how you did your analysis. This is the section that you really wish in the replication project they had done a better job on. The measure section mattered too, right, as you were looking for those variables. But if this section was really, really clear, it would have made your life so much easier. Um, so again, it's describing the analysis, what the analysis was you did, what variables were included in it, etc. Typically, I put this at the beginning of my results section. Some people prefer it at the end of the methods section. Um, Either place really is going to be fine. After your analytic strategy or analysis plan section, you're going to have your results. Now, it's important to pair this with the idea of that analytic strategy. So the analytic strategy has all the detail of everything you actually did test. In the results section, you are going to give details on the statistically significant effects. Vast majority of the time, if things are not significant, we're not going to put them here into the results section because you just told us in the analytic strategy the things you tested. So if it's not here, I know it's not statistically significant. These are very detailed sections. They're very straightforward. You don't need to worry about writing style. You just need to worry really about being clear and providing all the information. And we'll talk what information should be included when we talk about how to write one yourself. You often have tables paired with the results too. Next up, or the end of the papers, you're going to have a discussion. And in my opinion, the discussion section is the single hardest part to write. You're typically going to start that discussion with just a paragraph that's briefly touching on, hey, here's my big questions and my hypotheses. And then your purpose is to explain what you found. Now, if you're like me, when I was in undergrad and I had to read a paper, I usually skipped the methods and results. I didn't understand what they were saying anyways, but I would often read the discussion section because it was in more plain English. That is the goal here, right? Is to interpret and show what you found and help the reader make sense of those things. One of the things I do like about a discussion section, though, is that you do have some leeway in explaining those findings. You can come up with ideas that are, um, possibilities, as long as you don't contradict the things that you actually did find. Okay, next up, we are in the next video, we're going to learn about creating tables.